Welcome, Philly, to your favorite sports show, Broad, hosted by Jesse Town and Sam Wilson. They're smart, they're sexy, and they're all Philly. So thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome into week 4 of Babes on Broad, Sixers pregame live. I'm Sam Wilson with my co-host Jesse Town, and we are the Babes on Broad, brought to you by Bleeding Green Nation and SB Nation. We want to thank everybody for tuning in right away today. Tonight, we're a little off schedule. Normally we do this like an hour and a half before everything's supposed to start. But because they switched the time on us with the national game because of COVID and all that, we'll have to make it fast today because we got 30 minutes until game time. The Sixers take on the Heat for the second time in just 3 days. So before we get in all to that, we have some upcoming games this weekend. They have a back-to-back. We'll get more into that and after we preview this game. But it's the Grizzlies Saturday. Sunday night will be the Thunder. And then, Jess, what are some of the things just with COVID issues going on right now in the league?
So the league is a mess, which is why the Sixers play in a half an hour instead of an hour, because they got kicked out of the primetime spot, which is fine because the league thought it was essentially going to be it was going to be another 8-on-8 matchup that they didn't want to put, and instead of, doing this on Saturday, like they should have and postponed the Sixers game, which is neither here nor there. They just moved him out of the primetime spot, but that ended up moving the time up a half an hour as well. So there's a bunch of teams right now in the league that are having some issues with COVID. Obviously, the Sixers are one. They found out in the first quarter last week against the Nets, wasn't it? It was in Brooklyn against the Nets that Seth Curry tested positive for COVID. One of his tests from earlier in the week or the longer, not the non-rapid test came back positive, even though his rapid test came back negative earlier in the day. And obviously he was sitting on the bench, was in the locker room with everyone, and everyone had to take the proper precautions. So the Sixers are having their COVID issues. Now, thankfully, we're starting to come out on the other end of it. The Wizards are having COVID issues. They just had a third positive test on their team today. So they are definitely kind of out of it for the time being. The Celtics are having some COVID issues. I believe Jason Tatum tested positive for COVID. So he was in a 10 to 14 day quarantine regardless. And the Celtics are babied, so they get all of their games moved. I can't figure it out.
So annoying.
It's so annoying. And then the Heat are having their issues as well, obviously. And then there are the Phoenix Suns. They're working on some contact tracing right now as well. And their game, I believe they're supposed to play the Hawks tomorrow or either later tonight. I don't remember which, but their game has also been postponed as well. So the NBA has postponed a lot of games over this last week. Not one of the Sixers games. The Sixers are the only ones that are having to fight through all of their games. And I mean, they're good and they're bad things, right? So the Sixers are obviously, they still have some injuries. So Furkan Korkmaz is still out with his injury. Seth Curry obviously still out with COVID. Returning tonight, which is great, Tobias, Shake Milton, and Matisse Thybulle. All good news for the Sixers. The positive for the Sixers over these last couple games, and the silver lining, I guess, is, obviously Tyrese Maxey dropped 39 on Saturday, which was awesome to watch. It was fantastic to see him do that. In addition to what you have from Tyrese Maxey, something that isn't talked about enough, I feel, is, everyone wants to complain about them, not getting the games pushed, whatever. You're seeing what you have from guys like Dakota Mathias, Isaiah Joe, and it's exciting because, as the season goes on, now you have these younger guys that are growing their confidence early in the season. So when it comes down to some of these more important games and playoffs, if something happens where you need a spark from somewhere, or someone, God forbid, gets hurt, or someone's in foul trouble, and you need to rely on these young guys, you can rely on these young guys, and we've seen that so far, especially their first game against the Heat this week.
No, 100%. And that is like, to me, the only positive, and it still, I think, is ridiculous. But I think, obviously, you have to find a positive if you're digging. You're right, that's a positive, especially with guys like Tyrese Maxey, who would normally be splitting time with Thybulle and others off the bench and stuff. Yeah. So that's definitely a positive. But it's questionable, like what the league's thought process is behind all of this, like just the unfairness of it.
Yeah, and I mean, you'd have to assume all of it goes back to money. Like, I think
exactly.
If the Sixers weren't playing, if they weren't the 3:00 Saturday afternoon NBA TV national game on Saturday, they might have gotten that game moved. And at first I was like, all right, I guess like the Nuggets don't have any issues, so the Sixers have 8, even though they're dressing someone that's hurt. Fine, okay, fine. And then the next day they postponed the Celtics game, and the Celtics and the Heat were both having issues. So I was like, okay, they're both having issues. I guess that makes more sense. But then they did the same thing with the Wizards the other night. It was the Wizards and Pelicans, and the Pelicans aren't having any issues. Just the Wizards. Now, could they not get to the number? Okay, well, they could have dressed a hurt Russell Westbrook and he wouldn't have played instead. Like, I tried to reason with it and be like, all right, there has to be some sort of fairness here. There's not. Yeah. Nola's growling. She agrees.
She said, "God dang Adam Silver."
Ugh.
That's what she said in her girl.
Yeah. Nola, stop barking. It's fine. But okay, playing the Heat for the second time this week. You have Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, which is hopefully all you need. But now you get Tobias Harris, Shake Milton, and Matisse Thybulle back. The Heat are still missing all of their players: Jimmy Butler, Bam, Goran Dragic, Kendrick Nunn, Mo Harkless, Udonis Haslem, and Miles Leonard is hurt anyway. So, they still have guys that can hurt you, obviously, like a Duncan Robinson or a Tyler Hero. But what the Sixers need to do is not get out hustled on certain plays. Rebounds come to mind immediately, the way that they did the other night. They turned the ball over too many times, and they were just simply out hustled on both offensive and defensive rebounds. You can't, no.
Yeah. No, 100%. And going along with that, so I already said how the Heat still is missing everybody they were missing the other night. We are getting people back, which is thankful for us. And they were already, that whole thing, we'll break it down. I don't want to give away my key of the game yet. I almost let it slip. But so just to go over for the other night, Danny Green tied the franchise record with 9 threes.
That man chucked up 21 threes himself. 21.
It's nuts.
He just kept,
but it was what we needed. And that's one of the positives about all of this is not even just the rookies.
Right.
It's forcing them. It's forcing guys like Danny Green, who, I mean, he's played well, but he hasn't been what we expected yet. And then it's forcing him to fit that role.
The fact that he had like the worst game of his career and then the best game of his career in back-to-back nights, he went 0 from the floor. And then chucked up 21 threes, and then there's the record. Listen, I couldn't stop laughing. Did you see Doc Rivers' comment about this when he was like, Danny Green is 1,000 years old and playing 49 minutes? He's right. But that's what you need. And we've got a comment here on Instagram that says, and until Seth comes back, Danny needs to keep shooting. 100%. 100%.
That's one of the things we said in the beginning of the season. It's awesome that they got Danny Green for his defense and kind of to be that backup shooter because they also got Seth Curry.
Right.
So, I mean, it's what you got him for. So it was nice to see that the other night. Tyrese Maxey had another great game, 16 points, 8 assists, 3 rebounds. And then obviously Joel Embiid just tore it up. The reason that they pulled off not being upset in overtime, 45 points, 4 assists, and 16 rebounds.
I don't understand how anyone could disagree with the fact that he is the current front runner for MVP, and it is not close. It's not close.
No, 100%. And the only thing, I was telling you this the other day when we were texting, my theory about it all, you always have LeBron because LeBron takes any team he has and makes it something. So you're going to have LeBron. My theory is it's going to come down to Joel and LeBron, and we'll see when they announce it. But if Joel finds out before the finals this year that he did not win and LeBron won, I think it's going to be a Lakers-Sixers matchup in the finals, and it would light Joel off, and then we just win it all, Jess.
I still think they win it all regardless, and I think Joel Embiid is the MVP. It's not the look in his eye. It's different. Like, you see it. You can see it all over him.
And you I don't even know if I can think of a time where you see that sluggishness. Like, you just see that constant go, go, go mentality. And it's awesome to see. It's one of the things we've been talking about since he's been here is the load management and not having to sit and to rest and all that stuff. So,
I mean, they were getting beat pretty badly the night before when they were playing the Hawks. So he didn't play as many minutes as you would expect. Yeah. But that was still the second night of a back-to-back. He played over 40 minutes, dropped 45, and put the team on his back for a win. I mean, that is the definition of an MVP. Like, that's what it is. The guy that he is the best player on your team, and he is the guy that your team does not go without. Like
100%.
I also, I think there are parts of this team that don't go without Ben Simmons. You can see the drop off in terms of the offense being facilitated correctly when he's not there. We'll talk about Ben Simmons, obviously. Yeah. But the way that the offense moves when Ben is not on the floor, because there's not as much vision there, is different. The defense from Ben is different. But this team as a whole, that game is so different without a guy like Joel Embiid
100%.
having that mentality that he has. So with that, for tonight to beat the Heat, what are your keys to the game for tonight?
Well, so I'm all about the feeling. I consider everything in it. So the Heat, they're going to be coming out for the fight or with fight in them because they're still missing all those guys. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with their players out because of COVID. They have the same chance. Young guys step up. So they're going to have that fight. They also were close to pulling off the upset, but then lost in overtime on Tuesday. So I think that's going to motivate them in a sense. Mm-hmm. So the Sixers team, because they get guys back, they can't let that make them cocky in a sense. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to come out strong from the beginning tonight to prevent any of that and not even let the Heat in this game. So I'm going to say they do pull it off because they should. 117-103 Sixers. What about you?
So I think, I started to hint at it earlier. Taking care of the ball and executing there is going to be really big. They turned the ball over way too many times the other night, and in very lazy fashion. Yeah. And they also a lot of dumb fouls. I mean, the fouls on the 3-point shooters were bad, and they were bad. And I don't mean in terms of bad calls. They were bad in terms of there's no reason those should be committed. Absolutely not, especially on guys that will chuck them up and will make them to make it a 4-point play. So they need to really, I mean, they shooting themselves in the foot. It's a theme around here. So they need to not do it. There's no reason that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid shouldn't have handled that shorthanded team in regulation. Joel did his part, and now we need to see Ben tonight step up a little bit, and we'll obviously get into that. So I have the Sixers winning tonight, 124-100. I think that with their team back, they just kind of handle this and move on. Let's get into that. Yeah, one could hope. Let's get into that. So NBA storylines of the week, aside from COVID. James Harden is traded to the Nets in an enormous blockbuster deal. So the Nets get James Harden, the Rockets get Victor Oladipo, Kurucs, Dante Exum, 4 first-round picks, and 4 first-round pick swaps in the future. The Pacers got Karis LeVert, a 2023 second-round pick, and the Cavs got Jarrett Allen, Taurean Prince. The Sixers' offer, apparently, was Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle. Doc Rivers, not on board, does not want to trade Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is reportedly extremely happy that he did not get traded. He was never told he would be traded, but he was prepared for it yesterday and is thrilled that he wasn't. They asked for Tyrese Maxey. Daryl Morey said absolutely not. It also came out today that the Rockets had absolutely no intention of doing a deal with Daryl Morey. They had no interest in trying to make that work because the way that Daryl Morey left, they did not leave on good terms with the Rockets organization and Rockets ownership. So they had no interest in actually doing that. They were just trying to. So my opinion, I wouldn't have done that deal either. I think that, to be completely honest, I think the Nets lost that deal. I don't think
Oh, 100%. So, well, we've been talking about that. I was getting it confused. You said Nets. I was thinking Rockets. Because, I mean, obviously the Rockets got huge assets.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I just value Ben Simmons so much, even though I know everybody's pissed off about the other night because he had like 2 shots in the entire game. And, it's fair to criticize a game like that. It's fair to criticize a game like that because that should not happen, especially when you're losing so many guys. Should not happen, especially,
I'm the biggest Ben apologist on the planet. I got nothing.
No, that's why. I exactly. Like we haven't even really. It just shouldn't happen. There's no defending it because it shouldn't happen. But I still, because of one game, seeing how much of a piece Ben Simmons is. Offense or not, or shooting, I should say, shooting or not, he's a huge asset. So I think we still win for not trading him. And then to go along with it, I love Matisse, but fair enough. He's would make a great trade package. And then Tyrese Maxey obviously should just not even be in question, especially after his game the other night. So I kind of wonder, though, with that, because, obviously we know there's so many things that come out about Philly that Philly athletes have no idea are said until they're in the papers and stuff. So do you think that it might be kind of a report that's not completely true just because of the fact that now they're saying they wouldn't have even done a deal with Daryl Morey. So why would Daryl give up Ben Simmons? You know what I mean? Has that crossed your mind at all?
I think that now, if you would ask me this yesterday, I would have said the Sixers could have beat the offer that the Nets gave. If they wanted to, they could have. And I think it says a lot they didn't. And I think that the people that are angry about it are the same ones that want to scream and yell about Ben Simmons, but also expect him to be enough to get one of the best offensive players in the NBA. So you see how that doesn't add up, right?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make sense to me. In my opinion, I just think that trading 3 guys that are so I think in that sense, I think that the Rockets were essentially just trying to fleece the Sixers in a way. So they would have absolutely taken a giant L on that trade because of how much they didn't want to do a deal with the Sixers. It's probably very similar to like the DeAndre Hopkins trade, and like the deal that the Arizona Cardinals got for DeAndre Hopkins easily would have been different than the deal that the Eagles would have had to do for him. Does that make sense? So like, I think that it just would have been different. I just think that now that this hasn't happened, listen, I don't care who they were trading. I didn't want James Harden to be a Sixer, period. Like there was no part of me that wanted James Harden to be in a Sixers uniform. Like you can talk about him being out of shape and him like, it's easy to like get back in shape, whatever. Just the amount of BS that we've heard these last like couple months about him. Like last week, he was like, I never want to leave Houston. I really think we could do something special here. What is preventing him from, he wants to come to Philly.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
What is preventing him from acting like that in 2 months? And all of a sudden, he's demanding a trade, not showing up to things, being disrespectful to the other players in the locker room, disrespectful to the coaches, not showing up to practice, doing really whatever he wants. And you've given up a 24-year-old Ben Simmons, a 20-year-old Tyrese Maxey, and a 23-year-old Matisse Thybulle. First of all, who's playing defense for you if all the 3 of those guys are gone, other than Joel Embiid? Who is playing defense? Those guys are still on the up. James Harden is not getting better from what
I agree. The upside is,
there isn't one.
And that's why 100% I would still be iffy about losing Matisse. I think I might be biased though. But I obviously 100% no way on Tyrese Maxey either.
Yeah. I just think that not the 3 of them together walking out the door is not worth what baggage James Harden could be bringing. And have you ever seen James Harden play defense? It's not good. Also, like bringing James Harden in here, and you have James Harden, Joel Embiid, Seth Curry, Danny Green, Tobias Harris, Shake Milton. Like, I wonder, like, I don't think the Brooklyn Nets remember how many basketballs are actually allowed to be played with on the court at once. The Sixers also wouldn't have known how many. So
that's another interesting point with the whole trade that's happening too, is the whole Kyrie thing.
Can you imagine just waking up one morning and being like, nah, and then just going MIA?
It's just so much to dive into. I mean, we have to hurry this up because the game starts in 10 minutes, but it's just so interesting because, I mean, if it is mental health, like, take your time, but you have to at least try to get help. You have to inform your employer. You can't just ghost them and expect to still make millions of dollars. You know what I mean? That part isn't right. So the team needs to reach out.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, the team needs to reach out sometime this week, see if he needs mental health, try to help him in that aspect. If he's still not interested, something's got to be done. You can't just pay this guy millions of dollars to not play basketball.
I absolutely agree with you. And just to not answer and then to be in videos and pictures at parties and out and violating league protocol.
Yeah, like, that's another thing.
It's just not it. Also, how many I have a question for you, Sam. How many star players were on the Los Angeles Lakers last year?
1.
2. Is that a big 3?
Who am I forgetting besides LeBron?
Anthony Davis.
Oh my gosh, though. Okay, never mind. I was trying to think of, like, not a center.
and a couple years before that, how many stars were on the Golden State Warriors the first year they won the championship?
2.
And how many were on the Cleveland Cavaliers when they beat the Golden State Warriors?
2.
Great. Okay, just making sure. All right.
We'll see how it works out. There's so much into it. We'll break it down another time.
Everyone also, after game 1, the Brooklyn Nets are unstoppable, and, like, they're very much 500. Like,
we'll see how it works out.
They almost lost to the Knicks last night. So let's relax, everyone. Granted, they had like 4 players, so that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I just it was going to be too much. Again, if we're talking about someone like a Bradley Beal, that's a different conversation that I'm willing to have. I hate the way James Harden plays and all the extra stuff that's happened. No, thank you. No, thank you. And this is also true. You can't call it a big 3 when one of them doesn't come to work anymore.
Yeah.
That's okay. Kevin Love does not count, like, at all.
He was a reigning 3-point champ.
Stop. Stop it.
No, I agree. Okay, so moving
right now.
moving on. We already hit other games this week. They have a back-to-back this weekend. Saturday night against the Grizzlies at 8, and then Sunday night as well, 7 p.m. against Oklahoma City. What's your prediction overall for the record with those 2 games?
I think it'll be interesting because I think there's a chance Ja Morant's actually going to play either tomorrow or Saturday. Now, obviously, he's been out. He's missed, I think, 8 games at this point with a grade 2 ankle sprain. It looked really bad when it happened, but it ended up it wasn't as bad as they thought, which was great. I think he could give them a problem, so I think they need to kind of be ready for that. But I think unless Al Horford decides he's going to take over the game on Sunday in Oklahoma City, but I think they should win both of these games. What do you think?
I agree. They should win. I think it does also depend on Ja Morant because I could see like a first game back, him trying to go off kind of situation, which might. It's interesting because if that happens, there's a possibility they go 1-1. But because we thought originally when we did these that Ja Morant would be out, I had 2-0. Could be 1-1, but I'll stick with my original 2-0.
Yeah, gotcha. And Jimmy Butler is not playing tonight. All of their big players are still in the COVID protocol. Yes. They were a couple days behind the Sixers, so they're not done with their 7-day mandated quarantine yet. All right, let's run through these prop bets really fast. All right. Who reminds us how much we missed them tonight? Tobias Harris, Shake Milton, or Matisse Thybulle?
Tobias. I think he's the biggest piece right now to fit into this running.
It better be Tobias. It has to be Tobias. Yeah. I'm still waiting.
I hope I didn't just jinx him. Now I'm double thinking. I'm knocking on wood.
I am still waiting for that Shake Milton game, though. Who steps up for the Sixers tonight?
I don't know if I'd call it stepping up. I think Ben will try to redeem himself. So I think we'll see a big difference there from the last game. I don't know if he'll do enough to be like stepping it up and like put the team on his back, but I think we'll see a big difference there.
I think he bounces back very similar to the way, do you remember how heavily criticized he was against that, against the Brooklyn Nets a couple years ago in the playoffs? It was game 1, they lost, and it was a mess.
And my memory doesn't work like yours, Jess.
Okay. Well, he came out, I think he had a 30-point triple-double, and he played out of his damn mind. I think he comes out, and I think he has a point to prove tonight in the sense of redeeming himself from the absolute pitiful performance offensively the other night, but also I'm happy to be here.
I agree. I was just going to say trade rumors. Yeah.
Yeah. And not even that, like, I just think that the fact that it's kind of come out that he wants to win a championship here and he does want to be here. I also think something to think about could potentially be, if this was all going on, if Joel Embiid possibly was like, don't you dare trade him. Like, don't you dare do it.
I was thinking that. I
think it's possible.
I mean, they've embraced each other. They definitely have that bromance going on, and I love to see it.
It makes my heart so happy. Ben has to be better than Tuesday. Absolutely agree.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Again, I mean, you can't discount the fact that he still had 12 assists in the game, but I got nothing. I absolutely got nothing. Over under 23s taken by the Sixers tonight. Danny Green took 21 himself last night. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think we'll see it.
Over? Definitely over. Star of the game for you on offense tonight.
I want to say Ben, but like I said, I think we're going to see a big improvement from Ben especially compared to Tuesday. But I don't know if I think Embiid, just for the fact that he did so well. I think he's going to just kind of do his part tonight and not be any greatness. So I'm going to say Tobias. I'll say Tobias.
I was actually going to agree with a lot of these people. We've got a lot of Embiids coming in, and we've got some on Instagram too.
My only thing,
100% in.
I want to say Embiid every single night forever because, I mean, we also think he's going to be the MVP. But I feel like he doesn't need to. So maybe he'll be like, okay, guys, I did so much Tuesday. We have a back-to-back coming up. Help me out. You know, there's my theory.
Hey, works for me.
About it.
All right, so what do you think? Over under 30 for Joel Embiid tonight? Well, we got a Tyrese Maxey for the star.
I'm going to say under because I'm going to say like 28, 29, maybe push it.
I'm going to push it.
He's going to be around there.
I'm going to push it. I think 30 and 10. Easy. And who do you think is a star of the game on defense tonight?
Defense. Let's go Matisse. He's back. He'll do something.
I'm going to go with Ben Simmons. I think he steps up.
You think he's going to have a great game?
I do. I expect him to. I will be extremely disappointed as a person
That's a great point.
who has put it all out there on the line for Ben Simmons, night in and night out, defending every which little thing. He better. I will be extremely disappointed.
Just because I didn't get to mention it today, Fletcher Cox. He's going to be amazing. All
around on defense.
Yes.
And this is absolutely true. They don't have a center that can handle Joel Embiid, which is absolutely accurate.
Nobody does.
Shouldn't
say that. But.
Facts. Yeah. That's facts. All right. Well, we're coming into the end of our episode. We managed to do this in 28 minutes. It's 6:58. The Sixers start in 2 minutes. You've got time to go grab a snack and a drink. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sixers Pregame Live. We were worried. We didn't know if we were going to be able to do this week because of all the issues that were going on and if they were going to postpone the games. But then we realized they weren't going to postpone a Sixers game. So we would be able to do it. So we will definitely post a poll for next week. Make sure to check out our episode of Babes on Broad that dropped today. There'll be another one dropping next week. We'll go into everything about Doug Peterson getting fired and who's interviewing with and who we won and all of that good stuff. Keep an eye on our social media, as we said, to vote for next week. But in the meantime, go Sixers.